Welcome back to Proper Madness. I'm happy to have you back if you're a returning listener. If you're a new listener, my name is Sabby, and I have a very unique perspective on mental health. I believe wholeheartedly that we can turn anything that we have been through and alchemize it into bettering ourselves mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I also get to have the wonderful chance to speak to some amazing individuals, all very unique in their own stories from all around the world. They get to tell their lives, their stories, their hardships, and how they've overcome it. It helps you feel less alone, to know and understand that the way out is always through the eye of the storm, no matter how much we like to avoid it. Grab a cup of tea. If you're not a tea drinker, grab your coffee, and let's sit down and tune into ourselves so that we can learn to connect to other people. We never know the weight of our words and how they might help someone. Hello, welcome. How are you? You don't have to answer that because I'm not next to you, but you can if you want to, if you're out loud in your car or if you're watching me on your computer or wherever you're watching me. How are you? How many times do you think people have really stopped to ask us in our lives how we are without wanting something in return? I think sometimes we can be very emotionally available in a selfish way. If you're emotionally available because you want something from someone else or you're looking for validation, that's not being completely emotionally available. Emotional availability to me means you're secure in yourself, you're grounded, and you're willing and able to hold space when and if necessary, not for an ends to a mean or to get someone else to open up to you, because that's technically manipulation. I think sometimes we have this fear in our head of people are watching us all the time. People must be paying attention to every little thing that we're doing. Almost like we think and assume like we're a celebrity in our own life, but not in a good way. Because main character energy and acting as if you are in a place of status is actually what I'm here to talk to you about. But there are some downsides to having that sort of frame of mind in your everyday life, because then it makes you almost hyper aware of everything and anyone around you. And really, truly, unfortunately, everyone thinks that they're a character in their own movie, so they're not really paying attention to what you're doing 24/7. The best example I could give of this is when I first started working out at the gym. When I got into lifting weights when I was 23, so 10 years ago. 10 years ago, when I first started getting into lifting weights, I was so self-conscious all the time about what people thought about me, if they were looking at me, if I was doing something correctly or incorrectly, and how I would be perceived just because I was doing something outside of my comfort zone. When we do something outside of our comfort zone, it's very natural and normal, honestly, to feel insecure about it. But it's when that insecurity inside of us becomes outside of us that it becomes a problem. I promise you, no one's watching what you're doing all the time. There isn't a camera watching you all the time. We're not in the office. We're not in a sitcom. People aren't paying attention to what you're doing daily. You know who is paying attention to what you're doing daily? You. Your subconscious. Your subconscious mind pays attention to what you're doing and what you're not doing, even when you're not aware of it. So, I'm taking like 4 different tangents already. I'll bring it home. Don't worry. I'll bring all these pieces back together. Our subconscious mind holds the power to a lot of what we perceive in our day-to-day life. You know that saying, like, you perceive what you believe? If you perceive everyone in your life to always be watching every little thing that you're doing, that you're always being criticized, and that nothing you do is right, you're going to start believing that about every single person and every single situation that you come across, which is not healthy. Because truthfully, no one really cares. I'm just being honest. No one cares what you're doing all the time. No one's monitoring you when you're an adult. No one's trying to parent you when you're an adult. When you're an adult and your parents are no longer involved, there's no one watching you over your shoulder unless you allow them to. Are you allowing people to be hyper aware of your behaviors because you lack boundaries? You can lack boundaries and allow people to pay attention to what you're doing all the time. You can allow people into your energy, allow people into your space, because you feel like if you set boundaries, or you tell people, hey, this is none of your business, that you're a bad person, that you're mean, that you're too stern, that you're whatever word you want to give. You're not. So recently, I have started to keep a lot of the things in my personal life private. There was a time in my life where I thought that being vulnerable meant I had to share every little thing with everyone. It doesn't. Being vulnerable means expressing your truth and how you're really feeling in a certain given moment in time. It doesn't mean that you need to share your deepest, darkest secrets with someone that you just met right away. It doesn't mean that you need to go out of your way to tell everyone every single detail of your life. Being vulnerable to me, I'm not a therapist, all right? And I'm not God, so this isn't like fact, but in my opinion and in my life, being vulnerable means being truthful with yourself, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and reflecting that back to other people when you're connecting with them. Being vulnerable is connection. Being vulnerable is opening your heart and staying grounded in who you are and expressing your authentic truth and who you need to be and who you actually are deep down inside, instead of putting on this mask that you think people want you to be, right? I've talked about that time and time again. And I saw someone that I had on my podcast a long time ago recently took a break from social media, saying that they needed to go away to figure out how to be more authentic. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think we've all done that in some way, shape, or form in our lives, taking space to dive back deep within who we are, because we're like, who are we? Who are we inside? And then I had another person on my podcast recently, and if you listen to the episode, you know who I'm talking about, who said, well, what if in stepping back, you show people what that process is, and therefore that is being authentic, because you're showing people who you are, that process, what's happening. You don't need to disappear to figure out how to be more authentic. You just need to show up. Being authentic doesn't mean you need to be this idea in your head of who you think people want you to be, or who you think you are, or who you lost. Being authentic is being who you are and who you think and believe you are in that moment in time. So truthfully, you're kind of being authentic to who you are when you're living in your truth, even if that truth is far away from your core self. I think your core self and your authenticity are a little separate, and they kind of need to become one. Your core self is your authentic self. Your core self is the self that you ditched a long time ago because people rejected it. That is authenticity. It's a really quick way to break that one down. People are just, I think, on this authenticity kick right now of trying to figure out who they are, but who they are has always been there. Who you are is there. You just need to allow it to be seen. And you're probably not allowing it to be seen because you're scared. You're scared of getting rejected. You're scared of being judged. You're scared of showing up wrong. But even in showing up wrong, you're being authentic. Even in making mistakes, you're being authentic. As long as you're living in your truth and you're not trying to pretend to be someone else to avoid conflict or to avoid being who you actually are, you know? I think we avoid who we actually are when we're scared of being judged. If you're acting in a way that comes across as courageous, fearless, confident, magnetic, because you're just being you, and you really truly do not care what other people think about you. That is authenticity. And so we still continue to live in this idea and this frame of mind in our lives where we think we need to uncover all these layers, do all these spiritual things, take a bunch of psychedelics, and break down all these masks and shields of who we thought we were just to find who we really are, when really truly you may not even need all those things to begin with. I'm a big advocate for those things that helped me on my journey for a long time, but I'll tell you this much. Those things didn't ever, break me away from a bunch of things and then I was like, oh my God, I know who I am. No. I always deep down knew who I was. It just took courage for me to show up. Your core values, beliefs, your personality, how you function in the world, how you show up in the world, your persona, that will probably generally stay the same for the most part, right? I mean, obviously those things can change in some way, shape, or form due to trauma or life experiences, but mostly that'll stay the same. That is that core self. That little kid that would carefree run through the damn fields and say a bunch of stuff and not really give a crap what anyone's thinking. You gotta embody more of that inner child, right? The inner child. But that inner child eventually becomes an adult. So how do you merge the two? And there's been people that I've met, and within 2 to 3 seconds of meeting them, they see me. Why? Because they have the capacity to see themselves. And that's not me putting myself on a pedestal. That's true for any person. If you don't have the capacity to really see your own value, and to see who you are, and to know who you are, and truly get to know who you are, you will never be able to really see people as they are. In fact, you'll just see people based off of the lens that you choose to see yourself through. When you have these surface level connections in your life, it's because those, and if you're someone like me who's very deep, like a deep thinker, and you're quite empathetic and sensitive in some way, and you want connection. People who want connection and are highly intelligent and want to be able to really develop like a deep connection like that, surface level is going to turn you off really fast. Surface level is going to make you feel bored. Surface level is going to make you go, what the heck is this? There's been a lot of surface level connections in my life. And with those connections, it's because those people haven't done the work on themselves emotionally or spiritually in any capacity. And when that's the case, it's going to be really hard for you to feel seen by someone who is always wearing sunglasses, but you're like a radiant, shiny light. And this person's going, yeah, I'm really scared to see myself in that light, so I'm never going to see you in that light. And it's sad, right? Because I think a lot of people are scared to see themselves as they are, because when you start seeing yourself as you are, it's not pretty at first. It's scary, because you're having to deal with your shadows, you're having to deal with all the toxic traits that you probably have that you need to work on. We all have toxic traits. I still have a few I need to work on. I'm never going to have none. No one's ever going to have no toxic trait. It's just a matter of, are you willing to show up and look in the mirror and reflect and go, you know what, these are things that I do need to work on. If you can't do that for yourself, you're never going to be able to really sit and face some of the scarier, harder moments in life that need to make you see the truth of yourself. And you'll always be wearing a mask. You'll always be faced with surface level connections. If you're walking through life going, how come I'm not meeting people who I can really connect with? Well, ask yourself, are you willing to connect to you? Are you willing to connect to who you really are? Or have you been running away from parts of yourselves with these surface level connections because it's easier? True connection is difficult, True connection is scary. True connection is uncomfortable. True connection in friendships, they call you out on your stuff. True connection asks you to look in the mirror. True connection will push you into the parts of yourselves that you've been avoiding. But for some reason, people like to use all these other little tools in life to come up with excuses for themselves and sometimes other people, in good ways and bad ways, to either push them away or welcome them in. Like, it's almost like we use it as a way to be like, oh, this person didn't text me back and, they're not very organized. It's because they're a water sign. Yes, but if that's one of your core needs in life and you need a friendship or a dynamic where you need a plan, you need something a little bit more straightforward, you can't do the go with the flow thing, that is totally okay. But don't use astrology as an excuse. Don't use it as an excuse and then not communicate your needs. If you're in a relationship dynamic with someone romantically and they're not treating you how you want to be treated, and you're excusing it because they're, quote, your twin flame, that's not okay. I can tell you this much. You know how many soul counterparts I've probably encountered in my life with connections that for sure there's a past life something there because you feel a pull. If I were to excuse every single person that I felt that way with, if I were to excuse their behavior because of that, I'd be subjecting myself to being treated poorly. There have been so many situations where I feel that connection, I feel that magnetism, I feel that whatever that is, that past life connection spiritually. But if I'm being treated poorly, if I'm not being seen or valued for who I am, if I'm getting the runaround and I'm being lied to, I'm not going to think in the back of my head, well, could be my soulmate, may stick around. No. No. I don't care if you married this person in all your past lives. But if in this life, they're cheating on you, they're stealing from you, they're manipulating you, and they're controlling you, that's probably not the person for you. So to be seen and to be valued, you have to be willing to put the work into yourself so that you can get the connections that you've always been looking for. Everything in our life is frequency. Everything. Everything's energy. And if you're in a frequency where you value yourself, where you have self-respect, where, you're in an abundant energy, and then you're faced with situations that are showing you the energy that you no longer want to be in, it's not necessarily always showing you that's the frequency you're in. It's showing you, hey, will you continue to accept this and keep yourself in a lesser frequency and you're just going to keep attracting the same things, same people, same situations over and over again? Or are you going to see it and go, no thank you, and go up to the vibration that you need to be in to attract what you've always wanted? And at the start of this podcast, right, it started with our perception. Our perception of ourselves will dictate what shows up in our lives just as equally because of that frequency. So if you start perceiving people and situations based off of an old thought pattern, well, you're just going to stay in the same place for the rest of your life. You're going to be in the same people, same social circles, same job, same income, same relationships, same types of people, because you keep accepting the same, because you keep perceiving yourself as that. Start perceiving yourself as who you are and what you want and what you desire. And eventually desire no longer becomes the frequency and it's just reality. And then you step into it. Really, I'm unhinged today. I would say that, and people tell me this often, right? That I always seem to be changing. I always seem to be evolving in some way mentally and emotionally. And that's because my perception of myself keeps evolving. And your perception of yourself shouldn't, it's not something that's going to, it's that you're going to keep trying to face and figure out till the end of time. No. I think the perception of yourself is something that should have something a little bit more finite, right? Where if you finally start perceiving yourself as you, and I mean perceiving yourself as you with your flaws, because we all have them, your toxic traits, your positive traits, every single little thing that is you. All of it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, the crazy, the not crazy, all of it exists within you. And if you start perceiving yourself as that, but accepting and loving and cherishing yourself with that entirety, watch your whole world change. Watch people treat you differently. Watch people start treating you with more respect. Watch your friendship groups change. Watch the jobs that you get change. Watch everything change. Because once you accept yourself for who you actually are, and your perception of yourself is believing in yourself, completely being, the kids say being Delulu is the Salulu, and I'll tell you this much. It is. Be delusional with how you perceive yourself. Don't ignore what you need to work on, but be delusional with how you put yourself on a pedestal. Do that. Quit putting other people's perceptions and ideas and judgments and views and opinions of you on the pedestal. No. Put your perception of yourself, the best one, up on the pedestal. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks of you. I'm sitting here recording a YouTube video saying some unhinged things on and off, and then I probably sometimes sound very overtly confident or overtly like I'm putting myself on a pedestal. But I'll be honest, I deserve to. Why? Because I worked my butt off to get to where I am today, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It didn't just happen overnight. It didn't just happen because I decided to, put on some makeup, sit down, turn on a few lights, put on a mic, and go, you know what, I'm going to sit down and start talking and pretend. No. I've never pretended to love myself. I've never pretended to do anything. I've always just shown up as me, regardless of the stage of life that I'm in. I've always spoken my truth, regardless of whether or not I think people want to hear it or not hear it. I turn on my camera whether or not I don't know, if I get hate comments or not. I will say and embody who I am till the day that I die, and you should do the same. You should have the same unwavering confidence and self-belief and perception of yourself, because that's all you got. Yes, you'll get married, you'll have kids if that's what you have, your family, your friends, other people, but the one person that's always going to be with you in your own mind, in your own body, and your soul is you. So if you start perceiving yourself in a higher light, and you stop caring and putting so much weight on what people say about you and their perceptions of you, life will become easier to handle when the ups and the downs happen. The ebbs and flows of life will get a little less uncomfortable. They'll still be uncomfortable. No one's going to take that away. That's life. But you'll surrender to it a little bit more easily. Like today, when this guy called me, oh, you're a sweet girl, and I thought I was going to lose my mind and throw my phone at the wall. I stopped and I went, you know what? Why do I care? That's his perception of me. Is that fact? No. Your perception of me is not fact. Your perception of me is just your perception. That's not it. I know the facts because I'm with myself every moment of every day. I'm an abnormally honest human being with myself. When I mess up, when I make a mistake, I'm aware, I figure out how to fix it, and I move forward. So start doing more of that. Start embodying more of who you actually are and who you've become. Stop living in the past. Stop allowing the perceptions and the thoughts and words of other people to become your reality, or it will become your reality and you'll be stuck forever. And stop surrounding yourself with people who want to keep you small. There's gonna be people like that in your life forever. It's up to you to choose to stay with them or not. Okay. That is all I got for you on today's episode. I was a little all over the place, but I tried to kind of bring it back at the end. Be delusional with how great you see yourself. Be delusional in the pedestal that you put yourself on. And forget the rest. Because self-belief is what is going to get you to the other side. Self-belief is what got me through surviving many of the darkest moments in my life where I wanted to give up on myself. If you never give up on yourself, because people and situations are always going to come and go. It's always going to change. But that should never change within yourself, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Being Delulu is truly the Salulu. You just gotta do it in the right way. Face your shadows, and eventually your shadows become your best friends. Because when those shadow parts of yourself come back again, and people give opinions and thoughts and perceptions about that, it won't affect you as much. Well, yeah, I know, I met that shadow a while ago, and now we're best friends. Maybe we need to work something out and work on something, that's fine. But I already know myself well enough to know that's a part of me. I'm not ashamed of it. I've worked through it. We're friends now, and now I can move forward. Well, wherever you are, whether you're listening to this in the car or you're watching me on your screen, I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you truly see yourself as you are. And I hope you have the courage to show up as you. Because who you are is magical inside and out. You just need to believe it. And I hope you do. Now go out there and make some good decisions. Okay? If you watch my tea times, you know that that's what I say. Oh my god, look at the rhyming. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you ever want to chat more about anything that this podcast is about, you know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and good old TikTok. And be sure to stay tuned for my Tea Time with Sabby episodes. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or YouTube or whatever streaming platform you happen to be listening to this on, I encourage you to follow, like, subscribe, and rate this so that it pushes it out to whoever else might need it.